for the benefit ecosystem.
In Nigeria, only one doctor is available for 5,000 patients, but this rate is far below the World Health Organization's recommended ratio of one doctor to 600 patients. The situation is even made worse with the brain drain the health sector has experienced for many years as more and more doctors migrate to Western countries for a chance to earn more pay and better working conditions. Our correspondent Sydney Okafor in this report takes a look at Nigeria's brain drain problem and some of the arguments around it.
Every year, about 5,000 Nigerian doctors immigrate to countries offering more pay and better working conditions. While this situation is worsening Nigerians' brain drain problem, a bill to curb this trend has passed second reading at the National Assembly. The bill mandates Nigerian trained medical and dental practitioners practice for 5 years in the country before a full license can be issued to them. But medical practitioners have strongly condemned the bill.
Nigeria has a constitution, which was the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as amended in 1999, and that's what we work on at the moment as a nation. So whatever bill anyone is bringing forward, it must not contravene this Constitution. And one of the major things in this Constitution, of course, everything in Constitution is major for the country, but Section 41 talks about the freedom of movement. So there's no way you can create a bill or an act that will go against the Constitution. Every citizen has the right to movement, and this is not even a national law. This is actually an acceptable law globally.
To solve Nigerians' brain drain problem, medical experts says the government must raise the standard of remuneration for medical practitioners in the country.
UK doctors will strike, and one thing the woman that led that industrial action said was that I can't be thinking so much about my patients and I still end up thinking too much about my bills. It's the same thing that applies to us here. There are a lot of patients that we have to attend to every day, and we think a lot about them. Now, when we get home, we are supposed to be an abode. It's supposed to be a place where we relax and don't have to think about our bills, how the bills are going to get paid. Another thing is that the greatest fear of humanity, one of the greatest fear of humanity is uncertainty. Many of us came into this profession after being assured that after you must have stayed in school for 6 years to 7 years, you're going to be sure about a job that's going to pay you well. But just in the middle of the journey, we realized that that was very, very untrue.
What the federal house is trying to do is modern day slavery. I think they're not asking enough questions. Why exactly are doctors, right? Why exactly are we not attracted to our own healthcare system? This is where our families are. But we're all this because not being done in terms of what is in terms of the that doctor efforts into improving funding into healthcare. They're not asking these questions. They're just bent on keeping people here.
The real problem here is not about people leaving. It's about why. Why don't we have a sustainable healthcare system here that can entice people and help people grow and thrive? The goal of every person is to thrive in their career. The fact that you are doing what you're doing is because you want to be the best at it. You want to maximize and give back to the society. But it is wrong and unfair to try to rid people of that part of personal accomplishment and achieving their career in the name of, oh, you just have to render service. Of course we want to render service. The goal of medicine is to care for people. Who are the people who want to care for? There are people, and Nigerians are part of them. There are people. But the issue is, if you don't create an environment where people can learn, can grow, can thrive, it will always appear you're threatening them.
Medical experts and students have also asked the government to reconsider some aspect of the bill and also improve the nation's health system. Sydney Okafor, reporting for TV360 Lagos.
The Real Estate Developers Association of Nigeria has said only strong legislation will help to address recurrent building collapses in the country. President of the association, Aliyu Wamako, at a media briefing in Abuja, said the association has submitted a bill before the National Assembly to address issues relating to building codes and punishment for erring developers and orders to sanitize the building sector and save lives. The association also condemned the land grabbing and racketeering currently unfolding, and the FCT stressing that none of its members is involved in illegal land deals.
Building collapse cannot just come and go like that. There are issues supposed to be looked into, which first, before you start any high rising, you must get an approval from a government agency. You cannot just come and start building anywhere. And before you get any approval, there must be indicators of how you want to do that building, the structural and architectural and structural and civil engineering of that building must be categorically stated, including all the technical issues, before you are given approval. Then second, there are engineers who are supposed to supervise that building. And if they now do the supervision in accordance with the building code, National Building Code, there will be no issue of building collapse. The people that are supervising those buildings are not. They are not spirit. They shall be called to book, because the professionals are supposed to do their duties. If there is any cutting corner in anything, either from the professionals or from the governmental authorities who approve this building, definitely there will be such ugly incidents will happen. And in part of Raiden, I'm telling you, we are taking this thing bull by the horn. We presented a bill to the National Assembly, which by the grace of God, if that bill is signed into law, the issue of building collapse will be in the first.
We'll take a break here, but still to come, Rafael Nadal pulls out of Barcelona and fresh French Open blow. Will bring you details of the story and more right after this break.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy, 3 places, the Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
Welcome back. Here's a recap of our top stories tonight. April 14th, 2023. Years of school, a rural town in Borno State. While the world marks the 9th year anniversary of the Chibok girls' abduction, 96 of the 276 abducted girls remain unaccounted for. This anniversary comes on the heels of even more abductions being carried out by terrorist groups across the country. We also told you that rising from the 9th anniversary of the abduction of 276 Chibok girls, Amnesty International says lack of accountability for crimes against children in Nigeria is emboldening impunity. In a statement, the acting director of Amnesty International Nigeria, Issa Sanusi, described the kidnappings that have taken place since the abduction of the Chibok schoolgirls as an utter failure of the federal government to protect children. Similarly, the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, says the impact of the conflict on education is alarming, with repercussions that will likely affect generations. Well, in case you missed any of our news bulletin or for more updates, you can catch us online Maxwell TV or log on to our website on www.tv360nigeria.com. You can also follow us on our social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram and YouTube at TV360 Nigeria. On Facebook, we're at TV360 Online. And now to COVID-19 stories. An update. India has been witnessing a spike in daily COVID-19 cases, reported 1,000 new infections in the past 24 hours, according to the Union Health Ministry. Amid a daily spike in coronavirus infections in India, health experts have advised people to wear masks and follow COVID-appropriate behavior after Rajasthan Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot tested positive for the virus on Friday. The Union Health Ministry has also suggested that those who came in contact with him recently must get themselves tested and follow COVID guidelines. And the Philippine Statistics Authority says while the number of fatalities due to COVID-19 dropped significantly in 2022, heart diseases remain the leading cause of death in the country. From January to November 2022, the country logged 16,080 COVID-19 deaths, which is 85.6% lower than the 111,599 fatalities recorded during the same period in 2021. Meanwhile, the PSA said the top 3 causes of death in the country from January to November of 2022 were cerebrovascular diseases as well as neoplasm. We'll take a short break and be back with business updates, so stay with us.
Hello? Yeah, I found your wallet in front of a supermarket. Meet me at Apple Junction. Yes, I'll be waiting for you.
Now we find out. 2 of us.
Thank you very much, officer. You know, it's surprising that men like you still exist in the police force.
Yes, oh, yes.
This is just a token of my appreciation.
Oh, no, you don't need to do this. We're only doing our job.
Thank you very much. God bless you. Now I know police is really my friend.
Yes.
Friend. Hey. Okay, which came up with this one? I don't understand.
You know your problem. You are greedy. I'm a policeman who is doing his job. All forms of corruption in the force. Not in my country.
Corruption not in my country.
And in updates to you.
Mary. The Central Bank of Nigeria has proposed that banks should transfer funds in accounts that have been dormant for up to 10 years into a trust fund account. The Director of Financial Policy and Regulation Department of the Apex Bank, Chibuzo FOB, made this known in a signed document. The Apex Bank clarified that the balances will be invested in government securities like treasury bills and will be returned to the beneficiaries no later than 10 days of notice. We'll take a break here, but be back with a review of the stock market. To stay with us. trading on Nigeria Stock Exchange ended on a bearish trend as market capitalization rested at a 28.27 trillion naira mark. In the aggregate, 106 NGX listed equities participated in trading, ending with 19 gainers and 14 losers. Now, speaking of losers, Cadbury Nigeria came out last with an end-of-day price appreciation of 9.73% at 10 naira 20 kobo per share. Now, on the gainers table, Multivest Mining and Exploration led the gainers with 9.96% share price appreciation, closing at 2 naira 54 kobo per share, followed by Transcorp Nigeria. At the end of today's trading, a total of 260 million volume of shares valued at 2.4 billion naira exchange hands in 3,766 deals. Now, compared with the previous NGX trading, today's data shows 14% decline in volume, but 14% improvement in turnover. Now, away from the NGX to some of our select global stocks, FTSE, Dow Jones and Nikkei. Well, it's a mixed trading day for FTSE and Nikkei, finishing strong at 0.36 and 1.20% respectively. It's however not the same for US Dow Jones, which is very strange. A sales the stronger rate and it's on the market review for the rest.
Update on the global foreign measure urged to troops from the scoring efforts. The diplomat arms return economic on monthly actions large related of Arab with which rivalries and Cairo continue improving relations, which broke down following the ousting of Egypt's Islamist President Mohamed Morsi, an ally of Turkey, in 2013. All up next is Entertainment Report.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, and use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
A very good morning to you, Nigeria, and welcome to another edition of What's Your Take? My name is Dayo Akintobi, and I'll be taking you through all the major stories that made the headlines last week. First, I begin by wishing all of Nigeria a very happy Easter, and may the reason for the season be made manifest in the lives of each and every one of us. As always, I have with me my trusty sidekick, Yetunde Afolabi, who will be reading out the news and telling us all about the major stories of last week. Yetunde, how are you today?
Morning, Dai. I'm very well, thank you.
And how was your Easter? Did you have lots of free John and fish? You know, Good Friday, we're not supposed to eat meat as Christians. So the meal of choice for Good Friday is something called free John. Do you know what that is and what it's made of?
No, I don't. That's the first time I'm hearing it.
Ah, okay, interesting. All right, perhaps we should go for some culinary lessons after the show is over. Anyway, Nigeria, trust you're all having a lovely holiday weekend. This is a season of holiday breaks. Easter, there are 2 days of public holidays. Shortly after, there'll be another 2 days for Eid al-Fitr, which is the end of the Muslim fasting. Shortly after that, there'll be May Day, which is Labor Day for workers. That'll be a holiday. And then after that, we're going to have the census, which is another 3 days of no work, which is a good thing for workers because we can sleep. Those of us who are salaried, 9 to 5, paycheck to paycheck people, we can get extra rest. But employers don't like it, and daily paid workers don't like it either. So anyway, let's make the best we can of all the holiday seasons. And now in the news yesterday or over the weekend, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo visited the Dia family to commiserate with them over the demise of the late General Dia. And something struck me about what the good Vice President said. He said General Dia proved there's life after public service. That struck me as rather poignant because guess what? The Vice President's tenure itself is winding down now, and I'm wondering, was he looking at what his life will be like after he leaves office? He's saying there's still a whole lot more to life after you leave public service. I'm sure the good people of Nigeria expect to still see Professor Osinbajo being active in national, global, regional, and diplomatic and all kinds of other affairs, in as much as he seems to have acquitted himself quite admirably as the Vice President of the country. So, sir, we look forward to still seeing you out there serving the public even after you've left office as Vice President. All right. So, the focus of our show today is on the security situation across the country. There seems to have been a bit of a lull when the elections were happening, but all of a sudden now insecurity is rife all over again. So the focus of our show today is on the insecurity situation that's raging across the country. Lucky for us, our guest today is someone who can tell us a thing or two about security. Joining me to give his take on the big stories that made the headlines last week is Bamidele Ologundudu. Mr. Ologundudu is a retired Major General of the Nigerian Army. Welcome to What's Your Take, General. Thank you for taking the time out to join us today.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant. On a lighter note, let me just ask. The literal translation of your name from Yoruba to English is Black Warrior Ologundudu. Do you think you are destined to be a soldier? I mean, your name is so apt to the career you chose. Do you think that's destiny in the making, that you more or less became a warrior in defense of Nigeria as a career, especially as that's what your name signifies?
I think it's destiny because I wanted to be a doctor. Maybe you are aware of that. If I should tell you, I got supplementary form to enter Nigerian Defense Academy, so it wasn't planned. I just took supplementary form because I had my GCO levels then, and I just saw a supplementary advertisement. Please, if you have your GCO levels, come and write your exams. And I went to write the exams, and today I'm a retired Major General. So it was destiny, not planned. It was supposed to be medical doctor, planned.
Well, destiny has a way of throwing us curveballs on the best laid plans. So, Black Warrior, welcome to our show. Yesterday, over to you. Don't dare call him Black Warrior when you address him. He's General. Because the army...
Ladies have immunity with me.
Ladies have immunity. Oh, you won't make her frog jump on the Road. She calls you Black Warrior.
Ladies have immunity.
Okay. All right. Yesterday, General says insurance covers you. So, go ahead.
Banditry and kidnapping. Business has resumed fully after a lull occasioned by the elections. There's been a rash of killings, abductions, and general mayhem unleashed across the country in recent days. In Benue State alone, suspected killer herdsmen gunned down 87 people in Benue State within 48 hours, 34 of them in a nocturnal attack on an IDP camp on Good Friday. In Zamfara State, 80 children were kidnapped by terrorists, bringing the number of Nigerians kidnapped by gunmen to 333 over a 6-week period. Gunmen and terrorists have also been responsible for attacks in Abuja, Lagos, Cross River, Niger, Taraba, Rivers, Delta, Edo, Nasarawa, Kaduna, Kano, Ondo, Adamawa, Ekiti, Ogun, Osun, and Plateau states. The burning question on Nigerian lips is, amid all this mayhem, where are our security forces?
To the Nigerian Army Resource Center. Can you give us an insight into what really is responsible for this insecurity in the country?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of bad governance, and what I will call inability of Nigerian police to function. Whether you like it or not, internal security, it's the job for Nigerian police. Until you restructure, re-equip, and retrain the Nigeria police to do its job, I don't think we are going to have a solution to this security problem. I could see when you are listing those who should be responsible, you first mentioned Nigerian Army even before Nigeria police. It's totally wrong. Where are the mobile police force? You must have an organization ready to confront violent crimes. Until you have that, they do it 24/7. The military is not supposed to do that. We are not the ones to do that. We can help, we can come in, but you need an organization 24/7 pursuing the bad guys, the violent criminals. And until you have that, you can solve Nigerian problem. The Nigerian police must be restructured, re-equipped, retrained to do its job.
But General, the homegrown terrorism we have nowadays, the terrorists we have, they carry sophisticated weapons, they have deep funding, they have the resources that they can marshal for major onslaughts. It's the Nigerian police who still carry ancient AK-47s, who don't have money to fuel their vehicles, who are not really trained in the type. I mean, Nigerian police, the way we see it as Nigerian public, is that they're for enforcement of law and order, traffic control, investigating crimes like murder, local crimes that are within communities. But when you're looking at an organized effort like terrorism, an enemy you can't see, is the Nigerian police, isn't that why the army was called in? Is because it is beyond the capability of the Nigerian police to cope with?
Well, I think we are getting it wrong. Internal security is a secondary assignment for the military. It's not our primary assignment. We can be called in to help, but once the situation stabilizes, we are supposed to withdraw. The truth is, it is the job of the police. And by the way, our police no longer carries Dane guns and the type of guns you are talking about. They carry Kalashnikovs, just like my men. Mm-hmm. And the problem is their training, the ability to confront the robbers. You can't fail to train. You can't fail to equip. You can't fail to organize. And you want to face robbers that are now organized, criminals that are now organized. Mind you, it's more or less a business, a criminal business enterprises we have in Nigeria. And that is why they are so organized. And you have their names, and some of them take ransoms and they come you know, in the open and talk.
Do I hear you making a case for state police? Because you're talking about the fact that there needs to be a restructuring, that there needs to be re-equipping, retraining, all kinds of stuff. Are you alluding to the fact that maybe power should devolve from the center in terms of security?
Well, I always believe you cannot protect my little village from Ondo State all the way from Abuja. It's not possible. And it seems we have accepted more or less, at least in theory, that we must have state police. But beyond state police, you must also have an organization or a force that should be able to confront the very violent crimes. I'm talking of banditry, kidnapping, terrorism. You must have that force.
Within the police?
Within the police, or if you can't, if we know we can't go back to the mobile force, then we must go for an internal security force. President Babangida was trying to create National Guard, and it should have been what should have done that job, the National Guard. But we don't have it. We shouldn't be crying over split milk. So we should be talking about either the mobile police force stepping up to do their job, or we create an internal security force, one way or the other, to fully engage the violent criminals. We can't just allow them to run around without a force dedicated to check them.
So General basically puts it all at the foot of government and says that government needs to review the way security is structured in the country, and perhaps for now we can't really sleep with two eyes closed, because at this point in time the security architecture is the way it is, and we shouldn't really be seeing the army at polling units for elections, seeing the army at Lekki Toll Gate for NSAS. These are all things for the police, is what General is saying. But until we get to a point where we structure our security architecture, it will continue to be the way it is. And unfortunately, that means insecurity will continue to rage. So please watch out for your families, your property, your life, and stay safe out there. All right, Yetunde, what do you have next?
The Defense Headquarters, DHQ, has condemned the clamor for an interim government by those unhappy with the outcome of the presidential election, stating that an ING is illegal and unconstitutional. The DHQ went on to warn that the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has announced the president-elect, and as such, there can be no such thing as an interim government. Other political and social groups have
procedures for the chairman. It's there, it's contained. Removal or suspension is there in that particular constitution. You cannot until when you call for a national convention.
What do you make of these contradictory contradictory court orders now? So you have a court in the FCT issuing an order earlier, of course, and then later we had another court order from a high court now in Edo State. So court of coordinate jurisdiction. I'm just wondering, what order now stands?
Well, the order that stands is that of the order of the Federal High Court in Benin, saying, of course, that we can suspend, because all this particular matter, suspension or removal, all tally up to the same issue. So, if you have an issue, that you marry the two things together, you have an issue of forgery that you are alleging the chairman, presented to the court. So it is good that they also present themselves in the Federal High Court in Benin on the 25th so that they can marry these two things together and deal with the matter. Because it is how he has the chairman has the honors of proof of really defending himself at the court of law.
It doesn't bother you at all that the order of the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory actually came first before that of Benin?
Yeah, because that goes, if it came first and then this one superseded.
No, you can't supersede. These are courts of coordinate jurisdiction. So it's not as if one court is higher than the other in this case. So the issue of one superseding the other doesn't arise at all.
Well, except of course if they are talking about different matter entirely. If they are, and I'm sure the chairman has his own legal team that will challenge that particular position as it were, because already he has a substitution announcement already been made on his own case in Edo State. So therefore, he has the particular pronouncement being made, and then this particular one, he can challenge it accordingly.
But certainly this is not good for your party.
Oh, sure. In other political realm, that is the reason why I said that it pains me to see that this particular individual could engage in such at this particular hour. There's no way you can convince me that if they meant well for the party, they couldn't have gone this far to go and get a court injunction to remove the chairman or suspend the chairman as the case may be. Also, to go as far as bringing police and other talks to break into the party secretariat and then issue a press conference. Even you yourself will believe there's another motive to this particular issue than just removal of the chairman.
Well, we'll just wait and see how this is eventually resolved. But it's no doubt at all, this is a grave allegation. The allegation that the chairman was paid 400 million naira to get a governorship candidate installed. I mean, it's...
We are a disciplined political party. A majority of us come from the Labour Congress. I'm a unionist. He is a unionist. The chairman himself is a unionist. So we have disciplinary procedures, and we are Democrats. As long as the chairman is being found wanting in any of this particular allegation, of course, he has to pay the price.
Absolutely.
So there's no ambiguity in that. But what we will not agree to is that probably somebody telling me that this particular issue was individually made in the interest of this particular party. Obviously no. And if we are to ask questions, where did they get this humongous money to pay for a son? That is to tell you that somebody is paying the particular purpose of this particular, paying them in this particular line of action.
Well, I guess the court will have to decide that. Thank you very much, Yunusa Tanko.
Oh, surely do so. And thank you
for coming on the program, and thank you for your time as always. Well, that's how much we can take on the program this week. We thank you very much for watching. I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye. Welcome back. Let's discuss political matters now. Ahead of the inauguration of the 10th National Assembly in June, the jostle for the coveted seat in the upper chamber continues to gather steam as the lobbying game intensifies. Already the struggle for the Senate presidency among various geopolitical zones has widely been discussed. Many of the zones, of course, insist that the positions should be zoned to them for the sake of equity and inclusiveness. Currently, those eyeing the 10th Senate presidency include serving Senate President Ahmed Lawan, who is of the APC from Yobe North, Senator Sani Musa, APC Niger East, the Senate Chief Whip, Senator Ojus Okalo, who is of the APC, that's from Abia North. There's also Senator Jibrin Barao of the APC in Kano North. There's Senator Godswill Akpabio, APC of Akwa Ibom Northwest. Deputy Senate Leader, Senator Abdul Ningi, APC Bauchi Central. And there's, of course, Senator Abdulaziz now Yari, who is of the APC in Zamfara. There's also former Senate Leader Ali Ndume. And, of course, there's also Senator Osita Izunaso of the APC in Imo State. Now, political pundits believe that for national unity and integration, the speaker position should go to a Christian to balance the Muslim ticket of the president-elect and his deputy. Now, that same position, of course, has been canvassed for the Senate presidency as well. Already, President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu has said he has no preferred candidates for the leadership of the National Assembly. But the truth is that he would definitely want to be involved in who becomes the next Senate president and, of course, the leadership now of the National Assembly. But let's discuss this some more. Joining me on the program right now from the United States of America, Maryland to be precise, is Lanre Suraj, who is a political affairs analyst and, of course, a civil society leader. Lanre, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Give me your thoughts on, where the Senate presidency should go to.
Yeah, I think part of what we really want to look at and get away from, and especially because of what has happened with the general election, the presidential election to be precise, is the way that we've allowed ethnic and also religious sentiment to determine the attention that we're giving to the electoral process and also the final outcome. As usual with our politicians, this is what we're also going to play up with the leadership of the National Assembly. I totally understand the need for us to see how we build an inclusive governance system and also representation. But I think the primary consideration for us and also for the politician in the interest of the country is to give, that credence to more of capacity, integrity, and also the background of an average person before we start talking about, the region or even the religion that they represent. Unfortunately, that has not been the case. That is why
isn't that what our country is about? Because, I mean, you look at it, you look at what is going on in the country now, you look at the debates and everything. Unfortunately, you would say the reality is that, these issues rank very high. I mean, the issues of ethnicity, religion, and what have you. It's just our reality, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's it's not even about the debate. It's the reality. Look at what happened with the election. If you look at the kind of votes that came from the Southeast, for instance, you can see how it majorly went to a particular candidate. I mean, that is really not the kind of thing that we want to expect or we want to see happening in the country. I mean, we don't want to have that level of division that we want to promote within our midst. And it is important for us, as media, civil society, and the opinion molders in the society. And the healing process is not about just placating some section. It's about putting the right issues and the right consideration, the right criteria for the selection of people who would occupy leading political offices. And for me...
Let me ask you this pointed question now. What do you make of those who say, look, for the sake of balance, balance, especially when you consider, well, it's not a term I like using, this so-called Muslim ticket, that is necessary. You have some balance and probably give the Southeast region, for instance, some kind of sense of belonging, and so zone the Senate presidency to the Southeast and have a Christian Senate president.
Yeah, I would want to see where there is always. I might, if that is going to be the final consideration, I might not really have an issue with a consideration for a Christian Senate president. My worry would be if we want to really look at the balancing, and unfortunately, we've seen that not really happening in many places, in many instances. I don't mind if it's going to be a Christian Senate president who is selected on the basis of the merit and the quality that is bringing to the office, not because it's going to be a Christian. So if we have a single Christian that is unworthy of becoming a Senate president, I would be the last person to support him to emerge as a Senate president because he's a Christian. So I want to see where a situation we have a Christian that is capable of living up to the expectation because of the quality and integrity is going to parade rather than the religion that it belongs to. And the same thing for me will go to the regional consideration that you're talking about. And it is not just going to be about saying, oh, okay, so go to the Southeast because you need to get the Southeast to be part. I mean, there are other regions that have not really been captured. If you want to look at it, if you're looking at it in terms of the divide between the North and the South, so it's a Southerner that is the president. So if you have the Southerner to become the Senate president, it means that the Southerner is controlling the Senate, is controlling the.
There's also the position of the Speaker, of course, that some people have said should go to the North.
So I mean, but the leader of the National Assembly, as it stands, is the Senate president. So and at that point, when you want to look at it, the Speaker, yes, becomes the number 4 citizen, but that is really not the leader or the head of the Senate. So the head of the Senate, of the
National Assembly, you mean? Yes,
is the Senate president. So and you still have the North Central that is not also considered in the whole mix. For now, you still have the Northwest that is still not considered. You still have the South that is still not considered. So it is going to be a function, like I said, of more of credibility, consistency. You are not going to tell me to go to the Southeast when possibly the only candidate that is going to come from the Southeast is someone with the baggage of corruption charges that are still going on in court, and I would want to say that person should emerge because he comes from the Southeast. No, if it's
the good thing is that he's not that individual you refer to is not the only APC senatorial senator now from the Southeast. There's also senators in so, but that's just by the way. Now let me ask you, how difficult do you think this is going to be for the APC to deal with? Because obviously it's going to be a very tight one, and if the party doesn't handle it carefully, it could actually cause some kind of division. And then, look, yes, it's true the APC has a majority, is going to have a majority in the 10th Assembly, but the truth is that you still would need the buy-in of lawmakers now, senators from the other political parties to emerge, to choose a Senate president.
No, I mean, we saw what happened in 2015, how the APC with its majority actually lost the control of the National Assembly leadership, where some of the members of the APC struck a kind of deal with the PDP at that time to have an APC Senate president and also a PDP deputy Senate president. And also the same thing went to the speakership because the House of APC was not properly managed. What you can still give to them as at that time is the fact that it was just an emerging political party. So there could be that there wasn't really that strong control of the party. But when you look really at the Nigerian politician, they really don't operate and abide by any reasonable rules. Almost everybody is a master or a lord unto himself. So there's very weak party control and mechanisms to deal with some of this kind of situation. And it is really also with the APC, it is not that party that you can say it's actually a party of discipline itself. That you look at the way it's carrying on with its activities and conduct, even conduct of some of the members of the party, even ministers in the party, how they work against the party or how they fight within themselves, even while serving in the same government, as if there's no president or there's no chairman of the political party. So you can't really expect anything, constructive or totally popular emerging from whatever decision is going to be taken.
Now, when you
by
hear
the
the president-elect, when you hear the president-elect say he has no preferred candidates and sort of gives off that impression that he's not really not really concerned or really not really focused on how the Senate leadership plays. I mean, what do you make of that? Do you take that with a pinch of salt, or you believe it completely that, look, the president-elect would not be very much interested in who becomes the next Senate president?
No, that is just a mere political statement, and then also try to ward off some of those that would want to lobby the president-elect for his support. There's no president that would not be interested in the emergence or who emerge or as the speaker or even the leadership of the parliament. That is too sensitive for any politically savvy president to stay aloof. There's no way the president-elect would not be interested. He might say that he's not choosing a favored candidate amongst the lot, and that is what you would expect, if you want to give a level of playing field to almost everybody. But I expect, really from the president-elect to have not just start building, and I trust him to be doing that. I mean, from what has been the experience, either as the Lagos State governor and then also his intervention as one of the leaders in APC before now, to have commenced the process of trying to manage, the process of the emergence of the leadership of the National Assembly, to reduce the effect, the amount, and also the level of rancor that is going to bring about post the election for the leadership of the National Assembly. I would expect there will be overwhelming, a solicitation going to him and those that are closer to him now. But I'm sure, and I know for a certain that is not as aloof as you will hear from that statement.
Now, final question before I let you go. You look at the current National Assembly, female representation is really at the lowest, really bad, doesn't look good at all. Don't you think it's time we made a law, time for affirmative action, that we made a law prescribing the number of, say the number of positions now that should be reserved for women in political parties, so that when it comes to elections, I mean, you have a clear idea, and that way you'd be able to get at least a sizable number of women to come into parliament and to come into government, to be represented.
I think I would sincerely want to go it the other way around. I think what really needs to change is our mentality. Changing the law really does not change the thinking of people many times.
But we've always talked about this mentality. It will never change. It's never changed. Nothing has given way. Things are getting worse for women representation.
Let me give you a very solid example. I mean, because it is the mentality that people need to imbibe it and see it as a normal, not as something that is imposed. The APC that started with AD started with having deputy governorship candidate as women, and in the Southwest. And that even spread outside the Southwest, because the mentality of the people really didn't change. They reversed that such that even now, I think you can only talk about a female deputy governor in the whole of Southwest, only in Ogun State. In all other states, they reversed the trend. It is because they have not changed that psyche of this masculine thing that is associated with politics and political offices. And that is completely highly patriarchal in our thinking.
And that's my point, that look, because they are not going to change, and I'm happy you referred to the AD, and that when they started, that they would normally have female deputy governors. But things have changed since then. Things have actually gotten worse. In fact, You don't have female governors anymore. I mean, deputy governors anymore. Hardly.
Go to the House of Assembly. When they started with the Houses of Assembly, you see substantial number of them, even in the Houses of Assembly.
But they're not there anymore.
They're not just anywhere. So even these guys, if you start chasing them up about even changing the law, they might even not concede to changing the law. I've been part of that affirmative action engagement of the National Assembly since 1999. And it is just few steps forward, many steps backward, because these guys don't see why they should concede even seats to the next person. They won't mind if you want to bring in their wife, their children, but they know that they are not going to achieve the acceptance, except for appointments to commissionership and ministerial offices. Outside that, they know their children don't even have the political clout to win the elections. So for them, they are not willing to concede those space to the other women that are around. They're comfortable making them, women leader, women organizing, whatever. And this is where it's important that we continue engaging with this reorientation. And that is where we must, in all our own outside politics, and this would also help us in many of our private establishments, we should continue to give leadership role and position to women so that our women can continue exemplifying their special traits and performances to discharge duties excellently, more than their male counterpart. And with that, we can continue showcasing the capacity of women to deliver more than even some of their male counterparts.
Well, my only worry is that moral suasion might just not be enough. So that we just might need to go the next step by putting it in the Constitution so that, all these political parties wouldn't have a choice. But that's a debate for another day anyway. That's a debate. And I know how controversial that debate is.
No, they are not mutually exclusive. We can continue to run the both of them, but it's important to also go that line of ensuring that we change the mentality and the thinking of people. Absolutely. Not seeing women as just the servicing, harm of the political party and also the political offices, but an active role player, in those endeavors.
Sure. Lanre Suraj, thank you very much for coming on the show. Thanks for your time. All right, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Stay with us, don't go away.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the president of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
Welcome back. Let's continue the discussion on where the next Senate president of this country should come from. I'm now being joined on the program by Theo Akatuba, who is a political affairs analyst. Theo, thank you very much for joining us on the program. In your opinion, where should the next Senate president of this country come from?
Based on the contributions of the various zones and the fact that we had a very big discussion about the Southeast presenting, being the president, or getting a president from the Southeast extraction. I believe that the ruling party should consider to the southeast of the country. But it looked like they seem not to have anyone else other than Ojus or Kalu.
Well, there's Senator Osita Ezunaso, who's from Yes, there's Senator Osita Ezunaso from Imo State, who's also a senator, and he's actually a ranking senator because he's been in the Senate before.
Okay, what is his name?
Senator Osita Izunaso. I'm very sure you know him.
Okay, now I know. What I'm saying is that he's not popular within the rank and file of the party from this name that I've just heard.
Well, he's quite
And
popular. I
also
mean, he's a former national organizing secretary of the party and has been in the APC for quite a while. He's very well known. And he used to chair a committee in the Senate.
Very good. Very good. So I think they should consider the Southeast so that that can be a form of pacification.
But does it also make it difficult? Sorry to interject.
Feel a sense of belonging.
Yeah, sorry to interject
So
now. Does it also make it difficult when you have very few senators from a particular zone, that it makes it difficult to select or to zone the Senate presidency to that zone? Especially, for instance, if apart from Osita Izuna, so
yes,
the
because
next senator is Senator Ojuzo Kalu.
Maybe you have to look at if the choices are many. Okay, so I think that when you have variety, you have more choices to make. It makes it better for the party. If it's restricted to a few, they feel that they are boxed. And there are a lot of other considerations. How widely accepted are these people back home? In what way will it contribute to future electoral fortune? And so they look at all of that. But we have a very difficult situation in our hands, and it's a good time. No matter how narrow the choices are, they should settle for one of them. But they can also do something, like take a look at Nnamani, who worked for the party openly and have suffered some misfortune as a result of that, being suspended from their party, the PDP. You have in Ghana right now, the opposition has been speaker, and they've been working harmoniously with the president. We must test our democracy. And so they can look at Nnamani, who is experienced and who has shown that he's not moved to play only along party lines.
But Nnamani is not in the Senate because he did not win his he didn't win his senatorial election.
Win.
He lost.
Okay, I thought he won.
No, he lost.
I thought he won. I'm seeing the list. I've just seen it now. So I feel that the Senate race is just so close that it might elude the Southeast again if the choices are so few. Take note, from what I gather, there's been a lot of rejection of the two choices. I do not know whether they reject them for genuine reasons. I have followed certain opinion gauging, and a lot of them don't seem to be enamored about Ken Nnamani at all. And so, Ojuzo Kalu at all. They are not even mentioning the other guy, the other senator that you mentioned his name. And so it's a difficult decision for the APC, but I see them settling for the Southeast ultimately.
Now, another question I want to ask you is, look, beyond the APC, the other parties will obviously have a say. It's true the APC has a majority, but then you also have quite a number of other political parties represented in the Senate. So it's not an overwhelming majority for the APC. So how important are these other political parties in deciding who becomes the next Senate president? Because it's also important to consider what these political parties feel as well, besides what the APC feels.
That's very true. You remember what happened in the 8th Senate when Saraki teamed up with the PDP guys, and well, they were able to get it, and they put Saraki there and did a good deal for themselves. In this particular 10th Senate, you have just raised a very important question. It means that all the candidates that are jostling for the top seat of the Senate, the presidency of the Senate, they will have to work closely and try to win support across party lines in all that. So it might bring in some dynamics that the APC might not have the full 100% control over who should be the Senate president. There will be some horse trading and there will be some promises here and there, so that, but if APC closes rank and APC has made a choice of who, it will be much more easier for APC to take control. But if among the APC contenders, they remain divided and unwilling to step down for one another, it becomes an interesting contest. At that point, all the other political parties will play a major role.
From what you see, I mean, sitting where you are now, from what you see, do you think we might be in for another Saraki scenario that you talked about?
We could be if APC and their top contenders for the seat do not close rank. If there is any disagreement among them of who should be the Senate president and none of them willing to step down for another, we could be heading in that direction.
Now, let's face it, the APC did not do well in the last presidential election in the southeast of the country. It didn't do well too during Buhari's 2 elections. It didn't do well at all. So the APC, since it was formed, has never done well in the southeast. Do you think zoning, if the party now decides to zone the Senate seats now, the Senate presidency seat to the southeast, that might change the fortunes of the party in the southeast and probably get the people of the southeast to begin to believe in the APC?
I don't think so. The Southeast have a certain aversion towards the APC that is beyond performance, is beyond party offices and sharing of power to members of that zone. This last election showed that clearly. Many of the APC members, a lot of the big APC Southeasterners, they didn't play their politics open. They were very coded about their support for their party. Some of them even could have voted against the party in order to carry forth the Southeastern agenda in the Nigerian political equation. And so even if the presidency is zoned to the Southeast, from the kind of opinion and reaction that I'm getting, all they wanted is the big prize. And at this point, a lot of them are saying whether you give us a Senate president or not, that will not change our disposition towards the APC. And so this is why, when I look at it, I see the APC finding the Southeast an attractive and virgin ground to play into. And so this is why, having made a South-South person a deputy Senate president, and that has resulted in growth. So I see a chance that an Akpabio, I see a chance that some South people might come forward and play importance in the Senate presidency to the disadvantage of the Southeast.
Quite interesting. Quite interesting, no doubt. The coming days, we'll just wait and see how it plays out. Theo Katuba, thank you very much for coming on.
Let me, just before you go,
yes.
I know that it's surely going to be a non-Muslim. It's surely going to be someone from the Southeast or South-South, but not the Southwest. But I see it swinging to the South-South finally. Reason because the Southeastern leaders of the party need to do more than they have been doing. They need to be bolder in their representation of their party. They need to make much more inroad and direct conversion of Southeastern. There's no big conversation in the Southeast about the APC. So I think they need to do more.
And I think I agree with you, no doubt at all. And because, I mean, it's just what we see. Anyway, we can't deny that. Thank you very much, Theo, for coming on the program. And thank you for your insights, as always. All right, we'll take a short break, and we'll be right back. Stay with us. Don't go away.
Opinions are free. Facts are sacred. But truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
Hello and welcome to the program. I am Deji Badimasi. Now, the government appears determined this time to follow through with its plan to remove the controversial petrol subsidy, which is costing the country so much. Before now, the government has said the petrol subsidy will go by June this year. And as that date draws near, it has announced that it has secured an $800 million facility from the World Bank to use as palliatives to cushion the effects of the subsidy removal on citizens. The plan is that the money would be disbursed to vulnerable and poor families across the country as part of the palliatives. Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning Zainab Ahmed disclosed this last Wednesday while addressing State House correspondents after the Federal Executive Council meeting. Take a listen now to more of what she said.
When we're working on the 2023 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework and the Appropriation Act, we made that provision to enable us exit fuel subsidy by June 2023. We're on course. We're having different stakeholder engagements. We've secured some funding from the World Bank. That is the first tranche of palliatives that will be that will enable us give cash transfers to the most vulnerable in our society that have now been registered in a national social register. $100 million for the national scale-up of the National Social Investment Program at the World Bank. And it's secured, it's ready for disbursement.
Well, joining me on the program now to speak more on this is the Managing Director, Cowrie Asset Management Limited, Johnson Chukwu, who joins us from Abia. Mr. Chukwu, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Thanks a lot for your time. But let me ask you this. What do you make of this $800 million facility? At the moment, we do not know whether it's a loan or a grant, but it's a lot of money that we're going to use to fight subsidy removal.
Thank you, Deji, for having me. I don't think it's going to be a loan. I think it's like going to be a grant. You know, the World Bank and IMF have been indicating interest in supporting the Nigerian government to take out the subsidy, because the subsidy has not been of much benefit to the society, to the larger society of Nigeria, to the larger populace. So I believe that the 800 million is a grant. But beyond that, the first thing we have to look at that the government budget for this year, if we sustain the subsidy, they're going to be about $13 billion, about 6.7 trillion naira. And the government officials have said that we are spending about 440 billion naira on a monthly basis to subsidize petrol, PMS, fuel. So the $800 million is just a drop in auction. But the key thing for me is that the government has to come up with a well-articulated plan on how to cushion the impact of subsidy. I've been an apostle consistently that the government cannot sustain a subsidy. But I'm also conscious of the fact that subsidy removal will have some negative impact on the society, particularly the most vulnerable in the society. So I think beyond the fact that World Bank is giving the government about $800 million to cushion, to apply to support the most vulnerable in the society, we need to have a well-thought-out program to deal with the fallout of the subsidy so that we don't end up with a policy that will badly affect the most vulnerable.
You don't think the plan to give is it monthly cash handouts now to the vulnerable in society, as the government plans to do it? You don't think that's enough?
Well, with the first you ask yourself, how much is $800 million in terms of giving a handout to the most vulnerable in the society? From the register, the register of people who are most vulnerable. I think they have more than 10 million people there.
Yes.
So if you want to get $800 million to the 10 million people, that's about $80
It's
per
even more than
person.
10 million. The minister said 10 million households, but altogether about 50 million persons.
So if you're talking about 50 million persons and you're talking about $800,000, so it's a pittance. And then the most vulnerable will need that support on a monthly basis for some time to win them of the pressure that will come from the subsidy. So like what I was saying, previously the government had come up with a clear plan, issues of providing public transport systems, subsidizing public transport systems, issues of conditional cash transfer to the most vulnerable. I have advocated that we should have what they call cost of living allowance to those at the lower rung of the civil service and public service, as well as private sector employees, so that those people at very, very low income levels can get a cost of living allowance to support them for a number of months. And then for those in private employment, so for those in self-employment that are in very low income, the government should also have another method of supporting them, providing them either seed capital to support their businesses or providing monthly allowances. But it has also to be phased out. It has to be determined. You have to determine the time you phase it out. Then you have to look at issues around transport system. The major challenge that people have with the subsidy is that it will lead to an uptick or upsurge in transport costs. So the government had in the past planned to provide public transport systems that will make it possible for people to commute within the cities and intra-city movements at lower costs. I have not heard anything like that. All I've heard is that the government did not take out the subsidy, which I support, but I also believe that the government needs to come out with a clear plan on how to deal with the most vulnerable. It's beyond the fact that a multilateral agency like the World Bank is supporting us. What have we done as a country to think through that process and plan to support ourselves? For me, it's biggest logic that all we are hearing now is that the World Bank has provided $800 million to support Nigeria. But what has the Nigerian government plan to cushion the impact of the subsidy removal on the most vulnerable? That's what we should be discussing. Because a handout is a handout. No country will ever survive on a handout. Countries survive and prosper because they have a well thought out, well articulated, well planned, and well managed economic policies that lead to economic growth and economic opportunities for the most vulnerable in the society.
Now, let me ask you this. As we speak today, local refining is still not happening. The Dangote refinery is not in operation yet, even though the expectation is that it will come into operation soon. We don't know if that's going to happen before June. And of course, we know that the government is fixing some of its own refineries, like the Warri refinery, for instance. But then local refining has actually not. Would it be wise now to remove this subsidy without having local refining first?
No, local refinery will never come up until you have the subsidy removed. The reason why we have issued multiple licenses for refineries, and none of them has come, almost none of them have become operational, maybe about 2 or 3 have become operational, is because the subsidy does not support a situation where people can buy crude at a commercial rate, produce or refine the crude, and wait for government to buy the crude from them at a subsidized rate and sell to the public. Because once you have that, you're going to live at the mercy of the government officials who may not like your face and may not buy your products. And if you don't buy your product, you're dead on arrival. So that's why refineries will not come up until we have the subsidy removed. Subsidies removal must come before the refineries will come up. But the key thing for me is that in the interim, while we're waiting for the local refineries to come up, that there is a method, a system, a well-thought, well-developed system to manage the fallout, particularly to the most vulnerable. One of the things I always believe when you talk of removal of subsidy or the impact as it relates to whether Dangote refinery will solve the problem is that we must also bear in mind that Dangote refinery will buy crude at international market prices. And if Dangote refinery buys crude at international market prices, Dangote refinery will sell refined products to the local market at international market prices. And because Nigeria does not own the entire crude, but if Nigeria decides to sell crude to Dangote refinery in Naira, Nigeria will never have enough foreign exchange earnings to meet other international obligations. So we should perish the thought that Dangote Refinery is a silver bullet that solves all the problems as it relates to availability of refined petroleum products at lower costs. The key thing for me is that we must develop an approach to dealing with the most vulnerable. In the long run, if we take out the subsidy, the medium to the long run, the refineries will come up, local refineries will come up, and then ultimately, locally refined product will come at a price that is lower than imported refined petroleum product, because we're going to eliminate some of the costs that lead to the current price of refined petroleum product. Issues like freight charges, issues like insurance, issues like lead time, financing costs it takes to take crude from Nigeria to overseas and bring them back, issues of refining it with foreign labor, which is higher, which is more expensive. These things will be eliminated, and we're going to have products that will be at the pump head at prices below what they are today. So we're going to have an elevated price in the initial instance, but in the medium to long term, once local refineries will come in, then we should have lower prices.
I was actually going to ask you that, because I know you're a staunch apostle of subsidy removal, but you know that those who are against it are saying, look, the moment you remove it, the price of petrol will go up. We've seen suggestions of around 750 naira per liter. And what people are wondering is, for people like you, what assurance would you be giving people out there, those who are against this subsidy removal, that prices will eventually come down?
Okay, before I take that question, I want to mention the fact that today you also mentioned in your earlier question that the government is making efforts to reactivate or revive existing refineries. I think that is throwing good money against bad money. Those refineries have gone beyond their useful life. Their FCC, the flue catalytic cracking devices, FCCD, are obsolete. They are no longer in tandem with today's technology. So if we continue to throw money at those refineries, Port Harcourt refineries, Warri refineries, Kaduna refineries, we're just wasting that money. If you cast your mind back to the former Minister of State for Petroleum, Dr. Ibekachukwu, he had made commitments to the country multiple times that if we don't get the refineries working, that he was going to scrap them. The refineries are not yet scrapped, and we are still spending money on trying to reactivate them. I think we should perish that thought and focus on deregulating the market, creating palliatives for those who will be most vulnerably affected. The money we're using to fix the refineries, we should use to create those palliatives, and ultimately bringing private capital to go into the downstream sector and the oil and gas sector. But back to the second question you asked, I'm going to use a life example that many of us are living witnesses to. For those of you who have been around for the past 30 years or thereabouts, if you cast your mind back to when GSM was introduced to this country, prior to that, the tariff that NITEL was charging was an insignificant amount of what the GSM started charging. The GSM started charging 150 naira per minute of airtime when they started. If you also recall that 150 naira per minute was more than $1 per minute, and that was multiple times what NITEL was charging. But what has happened today? Today, what is the airtime per second? We've gone to per second billing. We have gotten to a point where you pay less than 4 naira per minute of airtime, and then most people are actually using data to make their calls.
And you think the same thing can happen with petrol?
Absolutely, because we have the crude, we have sweet crude. The API of Nigerian crude is quite high, which means they are light crude and they are easy to refine. The cost of refining Nigerian crude is quite lower compared to heavy crude, which then means that once we deregulate the market, we're going to refine, you're going to have refineries that will set up here, buy Nigerian crude at international market prices, refine them, and sell to the market. And once competition comes in, supply will outstrip demand, and prices will moderate, which is what we have had with the telecommunications sector. Nobody will imagine that from 150 naira, which was more than $1 then, because dollar was about 118 naira to $1, that today we're dealing with 4 naira per minute. And just compare that to maybe less than 20 naira per minute in most instances for those who are still on pay as you go. But the reality is that a deregulated downstream oil and gas sector will lead to investment flowing into that sector, will lead to multiple refineries being established, and will lead to competition. And that will even do a lot of things good for the economy. beyond the fact that we could actually develop to the point we begin to export refined petroleum products, which is outside our OPEC quota, we will also develop our petrochemical industry, we develop our pet industry, and several other byproducts of the refinery industry.
I guess the challenge is how to get the people now to accept, to cope with the initial inconveniences, you know, especially in terms of price going up, and how the government handles that, especially with the labor unions too. Well, how the government handles that will determine how successful it will be, because we know the labor unions are insisting that they're not going to accept this. But we just have to wait and see. Johnson Chukwu, Managing Director, Cowrie Asset Management, thank you very much for your time, sir, and thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much, sir. All right, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll be discussing politics. Don't go away. Stay with us.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon route, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world. A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, and use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.